Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1103 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. Man, this is the chapter that we have been waiting for the last several months, and it felt so good. The way that Oda drew Kuma in the chapter was by itself incredible. But there's also like a lot of things, small things, maybe big things, to discuss around it, you know? Like, Oda has a talent for us to perceive potential in every corner. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. A big topic of conversation as of late is Kuma's memories. Kuma has lost his consciousness in the present storyline, and I think most everybody wants a good ending for him and Bonnie. And so in order to get that good ending, you would expect, like, Kuma might need to survive. And if he's gonna need to survive, then he needs his consciousness back in some form. And so you had the copy of his memories that was stored in Vegapunk's lab is like this, like, smoking gun, haha, maybe this is possible. Could Kuma's memories be used to replace his missing consciousness? It doesn't seem wildly far-fetched, but a wrench was thrown in the last chapter where Vegapunk revealed that if anybody touches the memories, or Kuma revealed if anyone touches the memories, they disappear. And we know Bonnie touched the memories, and so if you were looking for any clarification in this chapter, we did not receive it. Even though we got a flashback to Vegapunk and Bonnie post her taking in Kuma's memories, we're not given the room and we don't see what happens to the memories. But I suppose we can take this conversation all the way to the end, even though we might be jumping the gun a little bit here. It's like, that is a big question right now. What happens to Kuma after this arc? Does he live? Does he die? Does he get his consciousness back? Does Oda cook up some other 5-star meal of utter insanity? All of these things, we really just do not know. It feels like Oda can pretty much do whatever the hell that he wants to, and it would probably work, which is wild. I really do not care how it happens. Bonnie and Kuma getting a happy ending is a dub. If the copy of the memories aren't in play, Vegapunk could have some sort of computer chip with effectively Kuma's consciousness, which he removed. There could be a copy of that as well. Vegapunk clearly had a lot of difficulties in all of these experimentations regarding Kuma, so to have sort of plans surrounding this totally would make sense. And honestly, if you have the power to wipe a consciousness away, why wouldn't you have the power to potentially restore it as well? But it's like if Kuma dies as a hero attempting to fulfill the legacy of Nika and live his life in that way, bro, that would be fitting as well. It would hurt me, but I don't think that I could hate it. And if Oda just doesn't have all these shenanigans planned about Kuma regaining his consciousness, he's already dead. Like, that's something that everyone needs to savvy with. This is a dead man. And it could quite possibly be the point that as a dead person, Kuma still possesses a will. You could be saying, well, JB's wilding again, time to click off the video, but bro, that was like the point of Thriller Bark. You guys remember Ryuma and Zoro's fight? You remember that Ryuma has been dead for hundreds of years? But he and Zoro still had a moment. But I just hope that in the case that Kuma does literally die, his body with the pawpaw fruit, that is no more. Oda plays with it enough to create a kind of happy ending for Bonnie anyway. Honestly, it would be really fitting for Bonnie's story to in some ways reflect Kuma's own, which we just experienced in the flashback. And one thing that Kuma was so very good at is being able to always take the good, no matter how much bad occurred. Jinny dies, and then Bonnie becomes his treasure. Guys, the fact that a Seraphim clone of Kuma exists could be the perfect ending for Bonnie. Like, she might not save the actual Kuma, but she could possibly save this innocent Kuma clone child. I think that we've seen enough of the Seraphim, especially through Boa Hancock, to just believe that the Seraphim Kuma is basically a young Kuma. So maybe Bonnie could adopt him and give him the kind of life that Kuma never had. The only thing that you really need to do is you need to sever the world government's control over the Seraphim, or at least over Kuma. And conveniently we have Vegapunk, who is probably the only person who could do this. But yeah, we're just spitballing here. I just want you to know that no matter which card Oda draws, it's gonna come up an ace. That's what I think. But it was a pretty sweet moment between Bonnie and Vegapunk after Bonnie learned the truth. I mean, she set out to the sea, especially after Marineford, in search of Vegapunk. She wanted to kill him because she thought that he was to blame. I don't know if Oda intended this comparison, but Vegapunk essentially represents all of the tribes and the races, the islands, that are protecting relics of the Void Century. And just like them, Vegapunk possesses a very interesting symbol. One big orb surrounded by 8 smaller orbs. If you've been around the theory community for a while, you're very familiar with this symbol and the places that it's found. the literal flag of Alabasta being one of them. But it really gained a lot of traction when looking at the Kozuki clan crest. When we got that crest with this symbol on there, it just stood out. Kuma calls it a protective charm, and at this point I think that we can be almost 100% certain that this is a symbol related to Nico, and probably Joy Boy, because we also saw it in Kuma's church, associated with the cross. I'm not entirely sure how much I want to dig into this, but you guys just need to know symbols are important in the story of One Piece. Oda loves to use them, and this one has taken center stage away from the symbol of the sun. That was actually one of the first theories that we ever made, analysis of symbols in One Piece, and highlighting the symbol of the sun. You had the sun pirates, you had the dawn, which is the rising sun, you have the thousand sunny. Trafalgar Law's Jolly Roger is exactly the same as Doflamingo's, except for Doflamingo's smile is not crossed out and Law adds the symbol of the sun behind it. Long story short, long before the reveal of the sun god Nika, we knew that the symbol of the sun represented Joy Boy. And now we have a new symbol likely related to Joy Boy that seems a little bit more specific. I don't think that you guys need me to tell you that this symbol, when it is revealed, its meaning is revealed. It's going to be mind-blowing and important. What each of the orbs represent. Why is there one big one in the center and 8 surrounding it? But yeah, this is a symbol that is also an important symbol in real life, related to ancient Indian astronomy. Essentially, the orb in the center is both the sun and the zenith, while the orbs surrounding it are planets or directions, like a compass. Some people get mad at me when I bring up Buddhism and One Piece because there's a lot of shared ideas between Hinduism and Buddhism. In fact, Hinduism predates it, so it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. But having a world-famous symbol here in One Piece, I mean, you have to connect these things, right? But as fitting as it is, it's also kind of like what? Because the orb in the center is the sun, like the sun god, but the orbs that surround it are planets like Mercury, Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, and Venus, i.e. the names of the Gorosei. So there's a lot to potentially dissect from this and talk about. I'm just gonna throw it out there for now. But if you're curious, the Gorosei, of course, are just 5 members, and this symbol has 8 orbs surrounding the sun. Under this theory, the missing 3 orbs are all related to the moon. Anyway, all this finally takes us to the present story in Egghead, and it's now just officially confirmed that Saturn is responsible for everything that has happened to Bonnie and Kuma, basically. And I also think that it is officially official that Saturn is the most evil character that we have encountered in the story so far. If karma is a thing, this dude will suffer. Kuma and his family were initially enslaved because they were members of the Buccaneer race. We know that the Gorosei are heavily involved with all these world cleansings. The Buccaneer race being important is a fact that only very few know, including the Gorosei. Saturn probably had a very heavy hand in making sure that Kuma and family were enslaved. We see Saturn in God Valley, and again, you just wonder whether Saturn was literally the person responsible for making sure that Kuma was at God Valley, effectively sentenced to death. Of course, Kuma escapes and carves out a life in Sorbet Kingdom. Sorbet Kingdom, however, has a new king, and how this king rules is largely a product of, most likely, the Gorosei and Saturn. The king learned somewhere that if they get rid of the trash of their kingdom, then they'll have higher standing in the world government. This inevitably leads Kuma to join the revolutionary army. So now Kuma has been intentionally made into a criminal. And while he was a revolutionary, Jenny ends up being captured and enslaved. We now know she was made into a wife of Saturn, most likely. Some people were confused by the 8th wife comment, but I just presume that this means that Jenny was Saturn's 8th wife. Therefore, Bonnie is actually Saturn's daughter, which was a theory that many people had. Shout out to you. And also makes me very rationally upset. But yeah, with Saturn and Jenny, I mean, it's just so easy to believe that everything that he does is very intentionally evil. Do you guys really think that Jenny was randomly captured and Saturn noticed this and was like, oh no, don't sentence her to an execution or send her to Impel Down? She's my wife now. No, man. Saturn had his eye on Jenny from afar and made sure that she was captured so that she would become his wife. And in my opinion, Saturn did this because he knew that this would hurt Kuma. No other reason. This honestly reminds me a bit of the subtext of the Luffy and Katakuri fight. And we've analyzed the Luffy-Katakuri fight in a lot of different videos, but the point is that Katakuri, at least after the initial skirmish, wasn't really interested in physically killing Luffy. Katakuri wanted to break his spirit. He was so certain that he could that actually killing Luffy was not important. But despite his every attempt, he couldn't actually do it, and Because of this, throughout the course of the battle, two things happened. One, Luffy earned a lot of respect. And then two, Luffy was able to grow. But with Saturn, I just have the impression that he has been trying to crush Kuma's spirit. And Jenny was simply a casualty here, which is like the worst kind of cruelty. But definitely something that he is capable of. I mean, he suggested the very same thing in the present storyline to Vegapunk. What can I do to hurt you most? But if he thought that giving Jenny a child and giving Jenny an incurable disease would break Kuma, he was wrong. So then it felt like we got Saturn's plan B. If I can't actually break Kuma, then I will make sure that this symbolic hero is perceived as a villain, even if I have to take away his consciousness to force him to do the things that I need him to do, in order for him to discredit his own ideologies. I honestly think that Kuma is a threat to Saturn, like somebody who is this good. Killing them is not enough. That would just make him a martyr, and regardless, that will that he carries would be inherited by those that follow him, that look up to him. It's definitely my headcanon that what Saturn is really trying to do is trying to sever the will of D. It's like an attempt to kill the ideals that Kuma stands for, and Saturn failed massively at doing this as well. So we saw Luffy in the chapter. Luffy is begging for food, and then suddenly food arrives and he's eating, and this is totally unexplained, and to me it's pretty obvious who did this, although I'm curious if you guys disagree or what the actual answer is, but I feel like Kizaru has finally decided which side he wants to fight on. But maybe I'm just biased because we have been predicting this for months now. But it really feels like Kizaru is the only answer. As far as we know, all of the allies in the area are all locked down. They can't move. If they had moved, somebody would have noticed. But Kizaru conveniently is not considered to be an ally, would not have been locked down, and can potentially move at the speed of light. I think that we need to keep in mind that food appearing around Luffy is an enormous feat because food wasn't just there. Somebody had to travel great distances, in the blink of an eye, unnoticed. The number of characters who could have possibly done this, I think, is very limited. And then in the chapter itself, Kuma has thought bubbles. He's a guy that is full of thoughts, thinking about Joy Bonnie, thinking about Sentomaru. From the flashback, we have context of his relationship with all these characters. We know that he is not doing what he wants to do. I mean, there's just so much here stacking upon itself that makes it extremely obvious to me that Kizaru has turned heel. At least a little bit. And honestly, I just can't possibly imagine that Kizaru would keep this secret for the duration of this arc, especially now that Kuma has arrived, and Saturn has revealed openly to everybody everything that he has been doing. How can anybody with even a shred of decency possibly fight for this guy and the world he presides over? But to me, this illustrates more than anything else possibly could how Saturn has failed in turning Kuma into a villain. Just like Goldie Roger, just like Dr. Huluk, just like Odin, in Kuma's final moments, he is going to move the hearts of the people around him. Honestly, Saturn has cultivated the perfect scenario in which this message could resonate the most. Rather than prove that the best among us can be broken, he's proven that the strongest among us are unbreakable. And it honestly would have probably taken something to this level to have moved Kizaru. Only a few chapters ago, Kizaru acknowledged that he was just a cog in the machine, and the message I think Oda was trying to convey is that Kizaru did not have hope. And that's kind of the point of Nika. And now Kuma, just the same as Nika, is definitely going to perform this role. But yeah, as you could probably tell, I'm totally convinced that it was Kizaru. I'll be interested to see if Oda finds some other way to do this. But regardless, it's still something that I'm really excited for, and I don't feel totally resolved yet. Like, even if it was Kizaru, I want him to acknowledge what he's done. I want him to openly fight, and I'm not totally convinced that he's gonna do this yet. I mean, how could you not, with Kuma being here? At the same time, like, Kizaru is just a weird dude, so maybe, I don't know. I want to see more, and I'm pretty convinced that we will. Oda drew Kizaru with thought bubbles in the chapter for a reason. At the very least, there's a ton of parallels between Egghead and Ohara. Once again, in this chapter, they compared this arc to Ohara as like an escalation of it. Look, there's even more battleships than was present there. This is an Ohara event occurring in the present story. Just the same as Ohara, this island contains a lot of knowledge. And we have a Buster Call because Vegapunk, just like the scholars of Ohara, has been researching the Void Century. And so in Ohara, you had Jaguar D. Saul and Aokiji. And Aokiji spared Robin and effectively spared Jaguar D. Saul because he was curious if Saul was fighting for justice. Basically, if Saul was right. Before he could betray his friend, he needed to see Robin grow up. See if she would become the kind of person that Saul thought that she would. Kizaru's story is very similar. He's a person who does not have hope for a better future. Without hope, there is no reason to fight. This hasn't been outright stated, but I think that we can conclude that while Kuma believed heavily in Nika and taught the virtues of Nika, Kizaru was not a believer. But similar to Aokiji, he's curious. I think that he wants to believe. So Luffy being here with the awakened Nika Devil Fruit is a big deal. And I certainly think that we're setting up a big reveal moment for at least the people present here now. That's another thing that was highlighted in this chapter is Bonnie hasn't put the pieces together yet, that Luffy is Nika. And I think that that is going to be an incredible moment. Honestly, I'm so excited right now. Luffy's been able to eat. You know that he's gonna get up here sometime soon, and I cannot wait for that. But yeah, it feels like a really interesting time to talk about Jewelry Bonnie's powers and just what happened in this chapter, because I think that it's a little bit intentionally confusing. And in SBS recently, Oda revealed that Jewelry Bonnie does in fact possess the HH Devil Fruit. And Saturn talks a little bit about it, like part of this was an experiment, because we didn't actually see her eat the Devil Fruit. We find out that he injected the Devil Fruit juice into her as a child. I think possibly hoping that maybe they would be able to give the Devil Fruit to somebody else as well, like an experiment to see if two people could share a Devil Fruit, if administered in different ways. But honestly, it's kind of hard to believe that Jewelry Bonnie possesses the H Fruit just because of how her powers work. It's honestly very similar to the Nika Devil Fruit, and that's incredibly obvious while reading this chapter because of the juxtaposition of the two characters. Bonnie possesses the H Devil Fruit, and in the chapter, she becomes Nika-ish. And then simultaneously, we see Luffy with the Nika Devil Fruit, and he looks old, as if he has aged himself. And I just have to wonder whether this was intentional by Saturn, like he knew that this Devil Fruit was similar, at least, to Luffy's, and that was part of the experiment. But with the Nika Fruit, Luffy has stated this on a number of occasions, he feels like he can do anything. It's as if he can make dreams become reality. And I think that there's something similar with Bonnie's Devil Fruit. She can make different futures become reality, so long as she believes that these realities are possible. So assuming that Bonnie can dream, she can make dreams reality. Oda continuing to be a sneaky bugger. This is how Bonnie is able to utilize her fruit to become Nika-ish, because she believes that it is possible for her to become Nika, or at least something close. But like Saturn says, your own knowledge affects the abilities of the fruit. In the chapter itself, we see Jewelry Bonnie loses hope, and then her abilities stop working. Honestly, there's something so incredibly interesting about this power. Like, just imagine for a second, right? Luffy does not have the Nika Mythical Zone Devil Fruit. Instead, he has the H Devil Fruit. With Luffy's personality, Luffy believes what he needs to in order to succeed. He never doubts himself. So if Luffy had this Devil Fruit and believed himself to be Nika, not many things would shatter his resolve. Even if someone else showed up with the Nika Devil Fruit, Luffy might just believe, hey look, there's two Nikas now, because I'm definitely one. And like guys, I know that Luffy doesn't actually want to become Nika. This is all hypothetical. It's like basically Luffy as the Pirate King, right? He's wired in such a way that when he wants something, it's just he makes it reality. So an argument can be made that Luffy with the H Devil Fruit wouldn't become Nika-ish. He could literally become Nika. No different than possessing the actual fruit, because the H Devil Fruit has the broken ability to make future possibilities reality, so long as you believe. You guys understand what I'm saying? It's a lot to wrap your mind around. But in my mind, there is now effectively two Nika Devil Fruits. Also, have you even spared a thought for the possibility of Jewelry Bonnie awakening this Devil Fruit and what that could potentially do? Because that would just be wild. But yeah, I'm sure that Saturn was cooking up something here. There is a reason why he chose this Devil Fruit specifically to experiment with. Just like our conversation earlier with Kuma, I do wonder whether he hoped to create a Nika in Jewelry Bonnie. It's stated that no matter how hard they tried, the world government just cannot possess the Gomu Gomu no Mi. So maybe after hundreds of years, Saturn gave up on trying, and instead chose a fruit that could produce similar results, specifically given to a person who believed in Nika, in order to change the world's perception of the sun god. Or something like that, I guess. But yeah, I would just say that Saturn has become a really interesting character, almost like a foil to Dr. Vegapunk, right? Like, Dr. Vegapunk is the one that's actually leading all of these breakthroughs in science, and then Saturn is following Vegapunk's research and then attempting to turn it as sinister as he possibly can. With things like Sapphire Scale, which he inevitably infected Ginny with, I just wonder if there was a greater purpose there. There's something that he's doing that's important to know, beyond just making her sick. Anyway, does anybody else have the impression that Saturn is too evil to allow him to win during this arc? I don't know if is that a thing? Can you be so evil that like the story narratively just does not work for you to succeed? There's no shades of gray here to work with at all. I don't know, man. I have that feeling that everything that Oda's cooked up here there's just no way that he can end this without demonstrating the power of Nika by defeating Saturn. I seriously hope that the theory comes true that Kuma pushes out all of his own pain and just gives it to Saturn. Now that we've had this chapter, which basically enumerates the fact that Saturn is definitely responsible for everything. All the pain in Kuma's life. He's earned it. And I understand that, as of right now, Saturn is coming off as kind of invincible. His abilities, the powers of his Devil Fruit or his innate powers of hockey, something going on here is just something we've never seen before. The Strats, some of the most powerful pirates in the entire world, certainly in the New World. Future members of the Pirate King's crew are totally frozen. We've seen Saturn shrug off a stab to the heart. People's heads have literally exploded by looking at him. Yet despite all of this, I find myself strangely afraid of nothing. Honestly. Like, I almost want to think of Saturn's Devil Fruit as a gimmick. Similar to, for instance, Boa Hancock. Its powers can be countered. Or maybe we should think about this like Big Mom when she steals people's lifespan. An important caveat is that you needed to fear her for that ability to work. Basically, I just do not believe that Saturn's abilities are as powerful as they seem. And partly I have this impression because when Kuma shows up epically at the end of the chapter, is he frozen? Does it seem like he's not going to be able to do any harm to Saturn? No, it does not feel that way. When Luffy gets back up after having eaten food and he starts to fight again, do you think that Saturn is going to be able to stop him? I really don't think so. Certainly not to the level that we've seen so far. Obviously, we need to actually see what's going to happen, right? But instead of these thoughts disappointing me, they actually excite me. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to use Saturn's own words against him, the truth to be revealed. Let the world have this knowledge, that the Gorosei and the world government is vulnerable. Honestly, that's powerful and fitting in its own way, that Saturn wants to say that the more that you know, the less possibility there is for the future. When by the conclusion of this, I'm pretty certain that everyone who witnesses this event is going to believe that the possibilities for the world's future are plentiful. And seriously, if Saturn's ability do work exactly like Big Mom's, that fear is a component that is required for some of his abilities, then what is Kuma doing here? Kuma is just going to inspire strength in everybody, and in turn diminish Saturn. But yeah, I know that we haven't outright said it yet. I just want to make sure that it's known that the lead up to everything involving Kuma was just spectacular. The end of this chapter hit like a freaking truck. Even though I doubt that Kuma is going to straight up defeat Saturn, even if something like the pain theory ends up coming true, I don't think that that's going to defeat him. I do think that if Saturn is defeated, it would be very fitting for Luffy to be that person. Still, everything that Kuma has accomplished has just been incredible and powerful. Honestly, it is so cool that we are living in this moment right now, which is undoubtedly going to be legendary, and it feels legendary. But of course, we still have some questions. Throw in that weekly mention of the Blackbeard pirates, Blackbeard himself potentially being here. How is that going to play out? I think that we still have some questions. One thing about this chapter that, I wasn't sure if I was totally bought into is Jewelry Bonnie was very eager to fight Saturn, and then suddenly she just seems sapped. Like in the middle of all this, she just lost the will to live. And I'm kind of hoping that this is a power of Saturn's Devil Fruit, because I'm not sure if it happening makes a whole lot of sense to me without something weird. Like maybe Saturn's Devil Fruit creates a passive despair effect, similar to Perona's negative ghosts. We also haven't gotten an update from Zoro in a while. Zoro's absence here is kind of conspicuous, and I feel sorry. I hate dipping my toes into this argument. The Zoro versus Sanji one, I'm kind of more of a Zoro fan than I am a Sanji fan, although I respect Sanji's elements of Sanji's character. But, in terms of them both being the wings of the Pirate King, one's here and it's kind of useless. The other is not here. And sometimes I feel like Oda is willing to trash Sanji's character while he's very careful about putting Zoro in situations which might make him look bad. But it certainly leaves us with the lingering question of if Zoro was actually here, would he be stopped like Sanji? Or, is Zoro built different? Oda made sure not to tell us. But yeah, I think that is pretty much what I had to say about this chapter. Obviously incredible when Kuma caught her as she fell, dude. All you can really do is give a teary-eyed clap. And even though I believe that I've figured out some elements of what's going to happen, I still think that there's a lot of twists and turns to come here. But as always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Whether you notice something from the chapter that I might have missed, just share your thoughts. Remember, check out my books, The Booms, links in the description. Like the video, subscribe, click the bell to be notified, join the squad, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.